This is our second lecture on memos. The first one, you have to kind of, I think, have an overview of all the different parts before you try to take a topic and write a memo. So that's what the goal of this PowerPoint is to, okay, now we understand the parts, at least I hope. I think sometimes people get hung up or stuck on the names of the parts rather than just understanding the purpose of the parts. I mean, we can call them whatever we want. It's not about what they're called, it's more about what they do. And I think also sometimes it's confusing to think, well, how can a document have, how can one document need the context and another doesn't? Or how come one, you know, needs to have an assignment and this one doesn't? And it's just because, it's different memos call for different things. Some can be very short, some can be very long. I think that's why we start, or typically that's why I start with the letter of request as the first document, because, you know, it's a very kind of simplistic, almost formulaic document. When you look at the resume, I think that people kind of know what to expect with that document, as well as a cover letter. A memo it starts to get a little bit more complex because you have to know how to research well. You have to be able to write concisely. Uh, and it's also a format that I think not very many people have written in before. So that's why it comes a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. So the first thing we're going to do is just review parts of the memo, especially if you didn't watch them back to back. Maybe you watched them on different days. So I'll just go through real quick and remind you. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to have a pause where if you can just take a few minutes and write the memo. If we were all in class together, we would be workshopping this. And because the idea is that you do this 7 times, right? They say you have to in terms of learning, you have to do something 7 times to kind of get it. So the first time is you kind of learn about the memo, the memo parts, and the second time we write it together. And then the third time, if we were actually in class together, my class that I have at RMU, because I teach at Pitt and RMU, they get in small groups and they write a memo together, like whatever topic they want to talk about. And so that there's their third time. And then the fourth time is when you write your actual draft, and then you send your feedback to your peer, and then that's the fifth time. And then the sixth time you send it to me, and then the seventh time, right, would be your final draft. And then it could, of course, if you wanted to do a rewrite, that would be your eighth time. And just to get as many kind of exposure points to the memo and the format as possible. So we're going to go through the memo sections, and we're going to write one together using the topic of ADHD. And then later, if we were in class together, we would write a memo of your choosing, which you could certainly write and workshop one. Another topic that we're going to be talking about later is failure and groupthink, particularly around the issue of collaboration in groups and teams. All right, so the parts of the memo, just a quick review. The header, the to, the from, the date, and the subject. So, and I think I said in the earlier PowerPoint, it's the same no matter where you go. What I meant by that is it doesn't matter what company you work for, that format is always the same. So the memo, the statement memo is always in the center, and that just to, from, date, subject, it's the same. The opening statement, this is where it gets a little dicey in terms of it depends on the topic whether or not it will be appropriate. The opening statement should pull your reader in. So it should get them to read the memo, let them know if there is some kind of history behind the topic, something, information that they have to know about it. And then if you want them to do something, or if you're assigning them some kind of task, now's the place to kind of let them know that that's coming. The summary statement, you let them know all the major topics that you're going to be reviewing in the memo. The discussion is where you talk about the actual content. This is where you're going to be using your sources and referencing the information that you know. The closing segment is where you're going to, again, drive home that assignment and talk about why this benefits them. What's in it for them? Why should they listen? Why should they do what you're asking them to do? And then we're kind of proving to them that we're facilitating that their task is going to be very easy. Because we provided everything they need. We've provided everything they need in the attachment section. So we've found them lots of fact sheets about the topic, lots of brochures. The first thing I studied was public relations or communications, and it's kind of PR professionals' jobs to create these documents. And despite what people say about PR professionals, we actually do hold ourselves to a rather high standard. And the documents that we create, we typically do have quality sources, which means that if you know the organization and it looks like a quality source, if it says a fact sheet or a brochure, it probably was created by a PR professional. And as long as you cite it, you can certainly use it as one of your attachments in your memo. I would tell you to be picky about what you're choosing. There's lots of fact sheets out there. There's lots of brochures out there. Pick the one that's more visually appealing. Pick the one that has the clearer copy, more brief copy. There's lots of options out there. Even, photos and pictures, those could all be potential attachments. Think about if you were, whatever your topic is, if it's lab safety or, I'm not really sure what your kind of interest is, but make sure it's a quality source. All right, so we've got our heading. All right, so if we're thinking about using ADHD, this one is a pretty easy one, I think, to kind of fill in. So take a few minutes and think about if you wanted to write a memo about the subject of ADHD, who would it be to? The from's obvious, kind of a give. And then what would be a brief kind of subject? Give you just a few seconds here. Okay, this is what I came up with. Obviously, you're writing it to me, but I'm fine with your memo assignment. You can have it be written to anyone. You can pick your audience. I'm fine. If you want to tell me that you're writing to other engineering students, if you want to tell me you're writing to other nursing students, if you want to tell me you're writing to other dental hygiene students, I'm fine with that. You tell me who I'm supposed to be, and I'm happy to be that person. So what I did was, ADHD is widely misunderstood. One of my RMU students said, "What about understanding ADHD?" And I said, that's even more concise. I like that even better. So sometimes you need a writing team to be most effective. So this is what our heading, right, would look like. Excuse me. All right, so we got our opening statement. The thing about a memo that's different from other types of documents is that it doesn't just have one audience. Like, this memo could be to multiple people, and sometimes there are people who have multiple roles, right? And even within our own class, there are people that have multiple roles. They're not just students. Sometimes they're parents. They're not just teachers. Sometimes they're parents and teachers. I have a daughter, but I also teach at RMU and Pitt. And at one point in my life, I was also a student and a teacher. So let's think about what we would say. How are you going to grab a parent's attention? What are you going to say to a parent to get them to read this memo? What are you going to say to a teacher especially, teachers are already very busy. What are you going to say to pull them in? What are you going to say to maybe even an ADHD client that's going through, dealing with this? What's our purpose? Are we trying to persuade them? Are we trying to inform them? Are we trying to do a little bit of both? Is there a context? What's our task? What do we want them to do? Right, so let's think a little bit about all these issues. Ultimately, what I thought, how I would go about this if I was writing this memo, I would compliment their care. I would say, you provide excellent care for your child, and I can tell that you're a good parent. Part of being a good parent, though, is being aware of pressing issues that are going on. One of these pressing issues is ADHD. It is far more of a problem than people realize. And I know because you care about your child so much that you would want to be informed. And so I've provided you with this information that's going to help you feel more secure about this issue. If I was talking to a teacher, I would say, look, I know you're busy. I know that you don't have a lot of time, but I also know that you care about your students, and I know you want to be effective in the classroom. And I know that you want to make sure that those two things can kind of connect. How can you work more effectively? How can, you be a better teacher? And I can tell you how. You need to understand this ADHD thing. Like this is affecting your students and affecting your ability to be effective as a teacher. So that's how I would kind of approach that. And then if I was talking to an ADHD client, I'd say, hey, look, I understand you're going through this issue. I have a solution. The only way to deal with this issue is to understand ADHD and find a way to treat it. So we can see in this one document, we're talking to a larger audience. It's more than just one person. You can also, of course, choose to focus on just one, but the memo does kind of facilitate an ability to talk to multiple audiences. Okay, so we're moving on at this point to the purpose, the context, and the task. I don't know why I have such a hard time saying that word, context. I guess I don't like X's. Not very many people do. Usually they're X's for a reason, right? Okay. So the purpose, educate reader about ADHD and persuade to research. So that's kind of what I thought made the most sense. I thought that there would be an information piece, but also that even though I'm providing them information, I would want them to still kind of go off on their own and still try to learn more. The context is a diagnosis issue. I felt like there really was a context to this problem. And also that there's, I think, a judgment maybe around this, or thinking that it's not real, or seeing it as, I know at Miami University, when I taught at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, it was a large problem that students were taking ADHD medicine to help focus around finals. Not because they needed it, not because they had ADHD, but because they were trying to do well on their finals and they were worried about their grades. So I think that there seems to be a lot of misinformation about the topic. So I think this is probably definitely a memo that would have a context to it. All right, so the task that I think I saw was just educate yourself. And part of that would be providing an overview of research, giving them a lot of examples, statistics, facts. And the instructor, I would tell them they need to educate themselves about ADHD, particularly if they had a student in their classroom that had it. And like I said, it's just a reminder, it's about a fourth of the memo. All right, so this moves us to the summary and discussion. And I just encourage you to think about, well, okay, what would our previous statements be? What is the meat of our message? How would we break this down? How would this break down into main points? I, of course, what I was thinking is something like this. This memo contains a review of ADHD signs, symptoms, treatment options, and multiple attachments to help you understand the complicated nature of ADHD. And for the discussion, I would start with most important. I would go to the least. And you want to use headers for organization and retention. And so for the first point, right, starting with the most important and going to the least, again, it's this inverted pyramid. The way that I can best describe it, or best kind of think about it, is say that you are making a 911 call and you're having an emergency. The first thing you say to the 911 operator is not, "I scratched my toe," if you also cut off your arm, right? You provide the operator with the most important information. And so think about that. Is it a scratched toe or did you lose your arm? Think about all the information and rank order it. Talk about the most important information first. Using headers for organization and retention. You have now entered the world where lists, bullets, and headers are good. It's a good thing. Use them. If you can break down information, you can make it more simple, make it more simple. If you can put it in a list, put it in a list. If you can readability is important. Making something more concise is a good thing. So now we're into our closing segment, and this is where, okay, so what do I want them to do? I just gave them a lot of information about it, ADHD. What do I want them to do with it? What's in it for them? And what am I going to do? How can I make this easy for them? I would say monitor the signs and symptoms of your child. Educate yourself. Read information that's attached. The benefits are healthy children, better performing students, and a solution to troubling mental issues. We're making it easier by providing and attaching all this quality data, which of course leads us up to, well, what quality data are we going to be attaching? What do we feel like they need to know more about? And what information wouldn't really be appropriate to put in the body of the memo, but is still kind of important information to know. What I was thinking is a fact sheet. You may not know about fact sheets, and honestly, the only reason why I know about them is because I used to teach PR writing. And fact sheets are awesome documents just because they're a lot like professional writing in that they are short, they're concise, they're well researched. I'll see if I can find some example fact sheets and maybe put them, but I swear if you just go to Google and type in whatever your topic is in fact sheets, you'll find some quality examples. Symptom checker, I thought, maybe if a mom or a dad was worried that their child had this, that would be a way to be like, oh, I think this is an issue, or oh no, I think we're okay. Medication information, which obviously a lot of people do go this route, but most of the time it's not just medicine, so I thought that there would be an attachment there for helping them with some kind of therapy option too. So now is the time in class where I would say, okay, you know the parts of the memo, we wrote one together. Now in small groups, I want you to take the topic of something like hand washing or come up with another topic. Make sure you have these parts and write one. That way, whenever you wrote yours, that would be kind of your third attempt. So you wouldn't be technically writing your first one. So if you want to go ahead and try this on your own, you certainly can. Maybe now would be a good time to draft your memo. I don't know if you've done the research part of it yet. If you haven't, I definitely encourage you to do so. If you're stuck on a topic, feel free to reach out, text me, call me, email me, let me know. I'll make sure that the memo examples are up there, the student examples, and I'm going to try to catch up a little bit on the grading. The main issue, other than being sick, is just I haven't been sleeping because I've been doing nothing but coughing. So, but anyway, thank you for your patience with me, and I do apologize for being a little bit behind, and hopefully you saw the updated syllabus, and I'm enjoying reading your suggestions for the course and how to make it better. I've already made some changes. Hopefully you've noticed them, and keep providing feedback. Let me know what's working, what's not working. This is your class, and I'm just the person here facilitating and trying to provide what it is you need. I want you to get the most out of it, and I'm just here to try to help you. So I hope you guys are doing well. If you need anything, reach out.